You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, the leadership phrase for today is accountability in the digital world. And my guest is an entrepreneur who's had a successful journey building and scaling businesses, and he's now helping do it for others. His name is Chris Shihadeh. Chris, welcome to the show.
Doug, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive Let's dive in on that and tell us about your current business, and then we'll sort of backfill with your journey to get there.
So my current business is Skylab Digital. We are a lead generation company. We focus on insurance verticals, and we generate between 5,000 and 20,000 inbound calls every single day for the biggest insurance brokers and carriers around the country. We're a team of 12, and we're a media buying team. We focus on placing advertisements across Google platforms, Facebook platforms, run clicks to our websites, and then generate inbound phone calls, interested consumers for our clients. And it's a work in progress all the time. It didn't always end up being to the level that we've been able to take it now. And I'm really proud of the team that we've built and the efforts and results that have come out as of late.
You, if I understood you right, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, when we were in the green room, you've made a couple of runs at building businesses. Is that right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would probably put myself in the category of a serial entrepreneur ever since high school, just always wanting to be my own business. And the lion's share were sole props, just me working for myself, doing various activities. Had a little window washing business when I was younger. And it really, I think, culminated in my early 20s when I started a tax settlement company with a friend of mine and also an attorney. And we ended up building that organization to roughly 50 people, helping consumers in IRS debt and resolve their debts and file taxes and get back into compliance with their tax situation. And that really kind of catapulted the next level of my entrepreneurship of, understanding how to manage people, the psychology of different types of people in the workplace, and being able to effectively work with each of them, each of the personality types. And that ultimately was about 4 or 5 years. I was part of Zip Tax. I had my partner buy me out, and I started getting into digital marketing that kind of set the stage for what I do now.
Well, I know the whole landscape has continued to evolve in the realm of digital marketing. Once upon a time, it was predominantly Google ads was the big deal, and probably Facebook ads was a close second to that. And then a lot of other people started getting in the game. At least this is my observation of it. LinkedIn started offering ad opportunities and any number of other activities. And for a time, that was kind of the classic, what you would think about as digital marketing. But I believe it's really expanded pretty far beyond that. And now we have, AI entering the game. And I've been reading articles about how AI is going to eliminate a lot of digital marketing as we once knew it. And I think even Mark Zuckerberg himself was quoted as saying the way they administer and procure and boost ads at Facebook is changing because of the discoveries they're making with their own AI. So what are you seeing on that front right now? What are the dragons you're trying to slay?
It's a great question. And, AI, there's just so many unknowns with how it's going to impact all aspects of our lives. It's already been a massive change in how we build creatives. And obviously there's been a lot of fear around people losing their jobs and people, AI is going to take all our jobs and whatnot. And I am a little bit more bullish in thinking it may replace some jobs that some jobs that are out now, but I think it's going to open up other new jobs to be able to manage AI systems. And if you don't understand it, you're going to be left in the dust. But with regards to digital marketing, we use it a lot in our creative and lead generation. So, I mean, we're constantly using AI to give us frameworks of our video and our static creatives, and it shortens the timeline of building our ads in a tremendous amount of time. Like, it would take a couple of weeks to get an ad ready to go, and now we can get one ready in a day. And that's a huge time savings. And now you can test a lot more things in order to find winners, find winning creative. But I think, I'm not sure how it's going to impact the likes of, say, Google and Facebook. I know everybody's kind of talking about how OpenAI and ChatGPT is going to take a lot of the search, the search capabilities away from Google, and a lot of the traffic that's going to come that was currently been at Google for decades is now going to switch to ChatGPT and whatever other future AI, conversational AI pieces in that. And it's tough to say until it all happens. I'm more of the mindset of Google is going to find a way to try to keep their market share. And will they lose market share? Probably. Is it going to be obsolete? I would venture to say no, but I'm guessing just like everybody else.
Well, they're making their own foray into AI with their Gemini products and all the things, VEO3 and all the other things they're trying to work on. So they're certainly going to try to remain competitive. But real quick,
I mean, have you played around with VEO3?
Oh yeah.
It is incredible. I mean, it's so cool.
I made my own Yeti videos with it the other day. So
it's super cool. And I mean, if people get good at prompt engineering, they're going to be able to make anything you want in VEO3 and its successors. One of the downsides, I think, of AI is that it's going to really cloud our reality of what's real and what's not real. And videos specifically, like, it was always a source of truth. If you had a video of somebody doing something, that actually happened, right? And that was, used in court of law and various things to be an element of truth. Well, now that's not the case anymore, right? You could put me walking on the moon if you want to, and obviously that's never happened. So, yeah. It's that part's going to be interesting to see how society works around some of that stuff.
Yeah, I just, not to digress, but I just saw a post on our local community pages this morning. Some guy showed one of these nighttime, ring cam videos of a trampoline in the backyard, and there was these 3 gibbon apes jumping up and down on it. Well, Southeast Texas, gibbon apes are not indigenous to our area, so that didn't happen. And but to your point, it does cloud reality. It's gonna really challenge us there. What I was gonna say, back to the point about fear of job loss, the reality is categorical job loss. I like to think of it more as job evolution has happened forever. And as every big new change comes down the road, starting like with, the steam engine that changed the way we did farming, and then the Industrial Revolution, and then the original wave of technology, there's always been groupings of jobs that are directly impacted by that new tech, that new evolution. And it's kind of this quantum step up in the stair step of change that does impact some segments of jobs. And so, yeah, if you're in that niche, you might need to think about retraining or doing something. But on the one hand, that's been popular forever. I mean, think about old movies of telephone operators plugging the wires in the wall. That was a job class that employed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. We don't do that anymore. Nobody's out there doing that. So
It's a great point. I've never heard it put so well as like job evolution has just been around for a long time. I think I'm going to use that term. I really
please,
like
yeah.
that one.
And I'm like you. I want to do what I can for anybody that'll listen to kind of help everybody calm down a little bit. This is not going to be that kind of a radical shift, and it's not like we haven't seen this before in the workforce. And I go back. It's hard to believe now. It was 17 years ago we had the infamous crash of '08. And I was working with job seekers, people who had been in their careers 10, 15, 20 years, lost their jobs. For the first time ever in their life, literally, were having to go out and hunt for jobs. And sometimes the best answer was to redefine yourself, repackage your skills and rebrand what you know how to do and go for a different segment of the market. And that's a lot of what we taught in our program back then. And again, 15 years ago, and for a lot of people sitting here listening, they maybe weren't even out of high school at 15 years ago. So stuff changes, and it is changing fast now. I get that. But on the other hand, don't be quite so dramatic about it, because it's just another kind of evolution in our workforce thinking.
And to add on to that, you can utilize AI at such a rapid pace to gain new skills. And if your job market, your segment of the job market is going towards the direction of being obsolete or decrease significantly, it's easier than it's ever been to learn new skills. And AI has made it so much more rapid that you could get almost a Harvard education in the course of a year just by learning on these various AI tools. And if you really wanted to, and the reality is a lot of people don't, but for those that do, there's so many resources out there to ingest knowledge at such a rapid pace that you can become an expert a lot faster than you were able to do even 10 years ago. And I think that's something that not enough people are paying attention to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've now lately started hearing the phrase gold rush associated with AI, and it's being talked about in terms of business opportunity, business growth, and people being encouraged to get on the bus and figure out how you might be able to take your specialty and leverage the power of AI to create a new opportunity, basically, like you said, and whether that's literally learning a whole new skill or just refining the skill you already have. But I do believe you kind of alluded to it a moment ago. I think one of the biggest, most impactful opportunities relative to AI is the prompt engineering people, and that is really when I see it and I look at it and think about it, it is the highest form of critical thinking. It's kind of like, I see this thing, what do I need to do? What do I need to know? How do I phrase the question to get the best outcome from my AI tool, whatever it may be? And that is prompt engineering. And to the idea that AI is going to take away our critical thinking, I don't think so. I think it's going to elevate the value of good critical thinking on the human side, and the famous human in the loop that a lot of AI experts are talking about.
I agree completely. I also think that critical thinking has taken a back seat in a lot of school systems right now, and it's not taught nearly as much as it needs to be because nobody cares what, how geometry works, right? A lot of it is, unless you're a mathematician, but a lot of that is just trying to be able to critically think and problem solve and be able to move that into real world problems. And I think a lot of the school system now, they aren't emphasizing critical thinking enough, which that is going to be a problem because, as you mentioned, that is going to be a main thing of how to prompt engineer, which is then going to lead you to getting what you want out of AI. And I think we'll see how things transpire. I mean, human race is pretty good at evolving in a good manner. So maybe what the internet took back from critical thinking and computers took away for the time period, now it's going to have to add back in this next generation. So me, I'm more of an eternal optimist. I think we tend to figure things out, but that no doubt was a problem this last, I'd say, 15 years or so of the internet can take care of all our problems and you can just type it in and get the answer you want. Well, now you're going to have to be able to critically think a little bit more to get the right answer you want. Right. And, but I think it's good things.
So let's tie that back to kind of the lead-in theme I suggested. We were talking about, in terms of being an employer, leading a team of your employees. And there's always the ever-present question of accountability. How do I create a sense of accountability? How do I manage it? And how do I, enforce it? But I just violated one of my own tenets there about associating accountability with enforcement. I think that's one of the big problems we've got with the idea of accountability. But what has your experience been, Chris? Most of your team is virtual. So what are you doing in this modern digital age to really build that commitment to the greater good of your business?
So I think hiring properly, learning how to become good at hiring is very, very important. And just as equally important, if not more important, is getting good at firing. It's my least favorite thing. Most entrepreneurs' least favorite thing is to have to terminate somebody, but it really keeps the health of the organization where it needs to be and keep it growing. That being said, to add some actionable items, one big thing that I learned was getting some type of assessment ahead of a hire. So we use predictive index. There's a whole bunch of them. There's Colby, there's DISC, there's Culture Index. But I would suggest that if you have a team bigger than 2, you should probably look at getting some type of assessment that you send out ahead of time. In an interview, the interviewee's job is to say what they can to get the interview. So you're not really going to get the job. You're not going to get the full person there. When you take those assessments, you're going to get a lot better picture of how they actually are and make sure that they're a good fit for this role. A person that has the traits of an engineer is probably not going to be best suited for a sales role. And if they are applying for a sales role because they're looking for a job and you get their assessment that says they're very analytical and engineer, type of traits, it's probably not going to be a fit. You're just wasting both of your guys' time. And if you have an engineering role available, that might be a better thing for them to work for because, their natural traits are there. So I'm a big proponent of assessments. And then I think just as important is setting proper expectations out the gate and reiterating expectations. So I tend to say how challenging this role is going to be to the point where I want you to say, all right, I can't do this. This is too much for me. I want you to turn the job away before I even start. And then when it's easier, it's like, oh, wow, this is great, right? And this is easier than you thought. To me, that means I did a good job of setting the right expectation. And that it's difficult to do, right? Because in our society, you don't want to have a high turnover. You want to keep them. I need this person in this role, so you keep people longer because you need these tasks completed. But ultimately, that doesn't move the business forward, and that doesn't keep accountability strong. And so setting the expectation is really key, and then constant reviews. So, as frequently as quarterly. I do semi-annually. You do a review and you quickly say, for me, I jot down every problem that's going on with an employee. I jot it down on a Google Doc, and then I'll review everything every 6 months. So, and every good thing too. So that way I'll have a whole bunch of material that when I'm compiling my review sheet, I'll be able to say concrete examples. Hey, this was a scenario that needed to get fixed. This did not meet expectations. This was a scenario that over exceeded expectations. You did a really, really good job here. And you're guiding them to do more of these good things and away from these bad traits that you want. So those are three main things that I think have really helped to build an accountability, which is tough to do in a remote world, right? Because you don't even know if they're there, right? I see if they're online on Slack, but that's about all I know if they're actually working or actually on the computer right now. So,
right. Well, I like all three of those, and I think you're spot on. I think it's, to sum it up in simple terms, it's the hire slow and fire fast is a way to look at it. And you're absolutely right. Almost every entrepreneur that I've ever known, myself included, was guilty of that. You feel like you've got a need. The first person that walks through the door, and in the old time we used to say if they could fog a mirror, meaning they have a breath in their body, they might qualify. And you put them in the seat only to quickly discover it's not a good fit. There's going to be a struggle. There's a challenge, etc. So yeah, you hang on though. You say, well, I can do a little bit, and I really needed something done, and so a little bit's better than nothing, and so I'm going to tolerate it and deal with it. And, the big thing I always caution owners to think about is if you've got a good team and you've brought a new person in and they prove not to be a good fit, it is not fair to the other parts of the team, the other members of the team, for them to have to endure the poor performance, whatever that may be, whether it's an attitude or outright capability and behavior. It's just not fair to them. And I was talking with a client the other day, and they said, yeah, but I want to be an empathetic leader. I care about what's going to happen to this person when I fire them. And I'm saying, okay, fine. You want to be an empathic leader, great. Have that same level of empathy for everybody else on your team that's putting up with this junk. And how do you feel about that? Have you thought about that yet? And they paused a minute and go, holy crap, no, that's much bigger, and so now it became easier to consider making that termination. I too am a big fan of the assessments, and that whole arena has really matured. And predictive index is a good one. I've got a colleague and friend who is a big, fully certified in the administration of predictive index, and we have had many discussions over the use of that. I'm also a fan, if your business is conducive to it, create a practical test of the primary work you're doing and see if you can't do that. In my last business, I was having a dismal time trying to hire people to come in and do our work. And I created a practical test. It was this was in many years ago in the mortgage finance world. I created a dummy mortgage file, and all the key data was redacted and all that, but there was a process of evaluating whether the file was complete, had all the right required documents and everything, kind of a checklist, review, audit sort of process. I created this dummy test, and a good reviewer could come in and process that whole file in about 20 minutes. That was pretty much the standard at the time. But anybody else, either if they took too long, they didn't know what they were doing, or if they were too fast, they probably weren't good at what they were doing. And I would tell people during the phone screen, there's going to be a practical test, and 2 out of 3 disqualified on the phone. They said, "Oh, okay, no, never mind. I won't come for the interview." But that's good news, right?
Huge. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. That's just like I was saying earlier. I mean, I try to get them to say out the gate, all right, this is too much for me, or I don't want to do this. And it saves both you guys a lot of time, and especially your time of onboarding and training, and then having to deal with the challenge of terminating, right? And so if you can get them to not even waste your time in an interview, and now I've gotten to the point where, like, if the interview, I could tell in the first 10 minutes, like, there is zero chance I'm going to hire you, I shorten my questions down to one more question and then say, all right, great, we'll call you back later, because I don't need to spend an hour and a half on this interview like I usually do, right? Let's get this off and on with our day here in 10 or 15 minutes. And it doesn't happen too frequently, but there's a few times that I'm just like, all right, there's no chance I can hire this person. And, you want to spend an hour and a half of your time finishing up all your lined up questions that you had? I don't.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I think, number one, kudos for you for figuring that out. I think that's a real sign of maturity in a business owner, knowing how to make that call and really zeroing in. I think the key thing I'm hearing from you is zeroing in on the value you need that job to deliver. Every box on your org chart ought to have some notion of contributing value to your business. And when you know that, then you can define the kind of person you want in that role. And if you're aligned with that, all those questions, all those standards are pretty easy to nail down. And or maybe not to oversimplify it, but certainly easier to lock in on for a better outcome.
100%. Yeah, being able to hone in on all that is super important, and I think it's a hard thing for a lot of business owners to do. There's so many things that are involved in the day-to-day of running your own business that it's really hard to be able to really hone in on keeping your team accountable, and that's it shows, right? That's how teams end up slowly deteriorating over the course of time, and who was once a really good person, good employee, ends up becoming a B-level employee, and then turns into a C-level employee. And to kind of compound on one of your comments previously about how if you have if you have a bad player, I would consider a C player, how it negatively impacts the whole team. I would even go a step further, that it's going to make, if you have a C player, they'll bring your top guys down multiple rungs. And so your best player, your best team member is now barely average because he's been around this bad apple for too long. And I've seen this happen time and time again. It's happened with me, and it's a very challenging thing to do, because most people, they do want to be empathetic. They know that, like, all right, you're going to be out of a job. It's going to be tough for you, and blah blah blah. You have a kid, and you just you justify in your head all these reasons why you shouldn't terminate somebody, and it's. At the end of the day, you're doing everybody a disservice, everybody else a disservice on the team.
Yeah, to say it one more way is I've heard a lot of owners say, yeah, well, I've got this dynamic team. I got these amazing people that are doing such great work. And yeah, this person is a little marginal for what I really need. But if they come in, they'll learn the ropes and they'll step up. And I'm saying it never, ever happens that way.
100%.
Never, ever. And, okay, maybe 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 10,000 might be just that. Maybe it is a person that just needs a break and an opportunity. But hey, guess what, Mr. Business Owner, you're not running a charity. You.
And those stats aren't good enough for me, right? Like, if you're getting a 1% conversion rate, those are not a good conversion. Let's call it what it is. So, if you have 1 out of 2 are going to be good, great, but that doesn't happen in reality. It's 1 out of 100 at best, right?
Right.
And, to me, like, all right. And now I'm also to the point of like, there's some people that maybe they could have figured it out, but I'm now in the mindset of, all right, I need to find the right person quicker and fire fast, right? And that's the whole the whole mentality of growing, I think, an A-player team is, you know what? 3 months, you find out how people are going to be, or 2-3 months. And then if they haven't shown up to the level that you expect, then on to, they don't even need to be doing perfect, right? But like, you have to see progress, and you have to be able to say, all right, this person is going to be who I need them to be in 6 months. You can kind of figure that out in 3 months, in my opinion. And if they aren't, trust your gut and move on. And your business is going to be so much healthier for it. Mine certainly was. And I know multiple people that have had that same sentiment.
Well, and I think if we talk to enough business owners out there, everybody would have some version of a story of hiring someone after going through a fairly rigorous review process, convincing yourself that they're a good fit. And on day one, when they show up, they're like, it's Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, who is the person I interviewed? You're not the person I interviewed. What is this? And I had one of those in my old company, a fairly senior manager role that I needed to place. I had a big struggle filling it, and I got a reference from somebody, and I interviewed this person, and everything really kind of clicked and sounded good, looked good, experience sounded right, all the other references checked out. Person showed up on the first day, and it was, I won't go into all the details for confidentiality reasons, but it was nobody like who I interviewed. And some very deep-rooted behavioral issues that showed up on day one. I mean, in the first hour. They couldn't even talk coherently, if you get my drift. But so that termination happened in the second hour, and I was back on the street looking for a fill. So.
Yeah, and that's why I think like interviews, you get better over the course of time, but it's hard to tell, right? Like their job is to get the job during that interview. And so say whatever we can. And then day one, every once in a while, you'll get that one. You're like, whoa, wait, this is not who I've been talking to for the last 3 weeks or whatever. And, it's just something that I think it's kudos to you for realizing quickly and being able to terminate rather fast, because I know a lot of people, they're like, all right, well, maybe it was just a bad day, and then wait for another week, and then wait a week, and then all of a sudden everybody else says, wow, how come Chris is accepting of this behavior? Right. That, and if they're accepting of the behavior, then I can be a little bit worse as long as I'm better than this guy. And then all of a sudden it goes, it ends up becoming a slippery slope from there.
Yeah, totally. Well, Chris, we're about up on time, man. Thank you so much for sharing this. Tell people the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can check out our website at skylabdigital.com. At the bottom, you can fill out your info. We'll reach out to you. My email is chris@skylabdigital.com. Happy to chat about anything general business or insurance lead generation. I always have a fun time talking to business owners.
That's great. Well, as always, folks, we'll have those links in the show notes, so do feel free to hop down there and mash on one of the buttons and get a hold of Chris if you want to know more. And I do like to remind you that we have a video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership, powered by Common Sense. Hop over there. Check out our archives, leave us some feedback, plus or minus, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to say. We would appreciate your input. If you've got an idea for a show or a theme we haven't talked about, let me know that too. But with that, I think we're wrapped up. We're going to say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.